Bien, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je voudrais souhaiter la bienvenue à Sigmar Gabriel, que nous recevons aujourd'hui en qualité de Senior Advisor chez Brunswick. Je voudrais aussi remercier le groupe Brunswick pour l'excellente coopération qui nous a permis d'organiser ce débat. Donc, Monsieur Gabriel, vous avez eu un parcours politique très important, très riche, qui vous a amené à exercer des responsabilités importantes et multiples en Allemagne, puisque vous avez commencé au plan local en devenant ministre-président du Land de Basse-Saxe. Vous avez aussi eu une carrière au sein du Parti social-démocrate allemand, le SPD, dont vous avez été le président de 2009 à 2017. Vous avez exercé ensuite des responsabilités au sein du gouvernement fédéral à travers les fonctions de ministre de l'Environnement, ministre de l'Économie et ministre des Affaires étrangères, et aussi en votre qualité de vice-chancelier de 2013 à 2018. Au-delà de votre parcours, je dirais que vous êtes connu pour votre franc-parler et aussi votre sens de la formule, qu'on retrouve à travers vos différents discours, vos différentes prises de position publiques et aussi à travers les écrits, notamment le livre que vous avez publié en 2020. Et si on regarde l'ensemble de ces publications ou de ces prises de position, on voit qu'à travers ça, vous avez développé une analyse lucide et sans concession de l'évolution du système international en marquant l'importance de la rivalité sino-américaine qui devient la dynamique principale du système international, le retour des jeux de puissance qui accompagne l'affirmation des régimes autoritaires dans une compétition avec les démocraties libérales, et aussi, vous avez souligné le ralentissement économique et la redistribution de la puissance économique entre les grands ensembles régionaux. Dans ce contexte, vous avez dénoncé une Europe incapable de s'affirmer dans cet environnement en recomposition, et vous avez aussi souligné la vulnérabilité de l'Allemagne, dont le modèle économique fondé sur les exportations serait devenu son talon d'Achille. Vous avez aussi souligné qu'au regard de la place centrale qu'elle occupe en Europe, l'Allemagne se voit chargée d'une responsabilité particulière dans la définition de la trajectoire de l'Europe et de la nécessité de prendre une plus grande responsabilité, en tout cas mieux définir le cap à prendre. Je dirais que la pertinence de votre diagnostic a été confirmée par les événements récents qui sont survenus en Europe, ne serait-ce que pour cela, il suffit de considérer la guerre qui s'est déclenchée, que la Russie a déclenchée en Ukraine, ou plus directement des événements récents au lendemain des élections en demi-mandat aux États-Unis, la crise identitaire et la profonde division qui traverse le pays et le risque qu'ils entrent dans une phase isolationniste. Et donc la question qui se pose dès lors est de savoir à quoi pourrait ressembler l'Allemagne et l'Europe après cette guerre. À quoi est-ce l'occasion d'un sursaut ou le début d'un processus de fragmentation? Et à quelles conditions l'Europe peut-elle sortir renforcée de cette guerre et s'affirmer comme un acteur géopolitique? Donc, nous sommes très heureux de vous avoir avec nous et nous sommes très heureux d'avoir vos vues sur ces différentes questions. Donc, Monsieur Gabriel, je vous laisse la parole. I think one of the main issue is that, as you have mentioned, the stakes for Europe is to become more than a market, than an internal market, and to be able to assert itself as a geopolitical actor in the context of an accumulation of challenges. And in this regard, you have pointed out the particular responsibility of France and Germany to be united and to define a way forward in order to avoid fragmentation or to impede the European Union to assert itself as a geopolitical actor. But I would like, before giving the floor to my colleagues, I would like to ask you a question, because in your description, in the landscape you have sketched, there is probably one missing element regarding the importance, the role of also I would say the rise of autocracies, or of regimes which do not share the liberal values of Europe, which is also a kind of a systemic challenge to the European Union. And how far is it, in your analysis, is it a real challenge if we do not only consider Russia, but also potentially other countries in the world, which could unite and also add another challenge to the ones you have already mentioned?
No, of course, the liberal democracies are challenged by autocracies, and especially by the rising China. China is the only country which has the ambition to be a leader in the world and the capability to do so. So that's not only for a party congress on the Chinese Communist Party, that's the reality. But let me first say, I mean, I often listen to those speeches where politicians say, let's fight for a liberal world order. I would like, and I would be happy if we would have the chance to see a liberal global order developing in the next years. But to be honest, I think what we really can reach is maybe a rule-based order. I don't think that we have the capabilities to convince China or others to turn into liberal democracies. We for a long time, we thought that open markets and open economies would automatically lead to liberal democracies. That was not the case. And then we have our experiences by trying to organize liberal democracies by force. The idea of the United States of America and sometimes others that you could impose liberal democracies from outside. I think there were only two examples that this worked in the right way. That was Germany and Japan after the Second World War. It was the only two cases, and under very special conditions. So for the time being, I would say it's not in our hands to change autocratic systems into liberal democracies, but on the other hand, we have to work with them. There are some challenges of all human beings on our planet, which can only solve by international cooperation. How you will fight against climate change without China, and so having a heavy conflict with China in nearly every field, and then asking the Chinese leadership, would you please agree to a common climate policy? I don't think that this will work out. So it's much more difficult to navigate in this new situation. Of course, we have our values, and we don't think we should not forget them. And we have to be careful as Europeans not to open markets and to be more dependent. We have learned our lessons in Germany. By the way, it started by the liberalization of the energy market in 2002, when we said the state is no longer responsibility for energy security. The companies should do it for their own. What did they do? They asked for the cheapest resource. That's what Russian pipeline gets. So sometimes we are following our own ideologies, and some years later we learn that's maybe not the right way to do it. So yes, I understand that we are in this rivalry, in this systemic rivalry, but on the other hand side, we need a certain kind of cooperation also with these non-democratic states, fighting against pandemics, fighting against climate change, or stopping the proliferation of technologies for the production of nuclear weapons. So we are in a world where those challenges, which only can be addressed by international cooperation, are increasing, but the willingness to cooperate is decreasing. And if you can compare it with the situation after the finance crisis, it's interesting. 2008, on the height of this finance crisis, the G20 leaders the finance ministers met immediately in Washington, and they had the same analysis, and they knew what to do. We hadn't such a meeting on the G20 level against the pandemic since today. We had one ministerial level on G20 on the foreign ministers. It failed because the Americans wanted to call the virus China virus, and I don't know why the Chinese were against this idea. This was nothing. There was no other attempt to fight a common fight against these pandemic which affected the whole globe. So second, I think what Europe can do is to develop an alternative to that what we call the new Silk Road or the One Belt, One Road initiative, to offer other countries, especially those who are on the way to become democracies, to offer an alternative to the Chinese offers, which I would say are, at the end, are of much higher quality than what China is offering. So going in a competition. Third, to offer them free trade agreements. I mean, I can't understand why, since 20 years, there is a free trade agreement between the European Union and Mercosur, and we're not signing it. And for sometimes for not understandable reasons. And now China is coming and, for example, offering a country like Argentina the cooperation with China. And many of these states would love to do more with us, but there is no offer from the European Union, or we are asking so high standards from them that they are not able to reach it, and then we have nothing. So we are not handcuffed. It's not so that we can't do anything. First, of course, cooperation when it comes to global challenges. Second, giving alternatives to the One Silk, One Road initiative from the European Union, hopefully together with the United States. It's not the best idea that we have these Build Back Better World initiative of Joe Biden and the Global Europe from Europe without any joint hands. And then, of course, to develop free trade agreements with as long as the WTO is not working sufficiently. So Europe has to offer a lot. It's not necessary to sit back and watching how the autocracy is getting stronger and stronger.
Thank you. Yes, I think we have already briefly addressed the issue of climate, and I would like to give the floor to my colleague Marc-Antoine, who is in charge of the climate and energy.
Thank you so much, Eric-André, and Herr Gabriel, it's eine große Ehre natürlich. I would like to, you're here in Paris. We, indeed, as you mentioned, the French-German relationship has been very complicated these days. One fundamental issue, one stumbling block has been the diverging trajectories as far as decarbonization is concerned, right? And how we plan our energy mixes. But I think the crisis may give us an opportunity to maybe, align our trajectories somehow more closely. Just to give you an example, I think in this country, we have learned hard that actually we have so much underinvested in renewables over the past decade that we have a lot of pain from that today. Not necessarily primarily because of Russia's gas cutoff, but because of the unavailability of part of the nuclear fleet. And so the understanding now is that we have to do much more, much faster, much quicker in the field of renewables. In Germany, I'd like to ask you whether you have also done such an aggiornamento in your energy policy, because the energy transition was kind of, okay, we run down coal and nuclear, we beef up renewables, and all that is supported by cheap natural gas, flexible gas from Russia, etc. And so the idea was, this is the best way to do it. It's fast and it's competitive and it's efficient. And now, is there an aggiornamento? For example, could you reconsider, in your view, the role of nuclear? Do you think an aggiornamento is needed in the field of hydrogen as well? And what kind of opportunities this might offer to improve the French-German relationship?
I stopped discussing about nuclear energy when I was 18 and was in France meeting a member of the French Communist Party at Marcoule. We were visiting the site of a nuclear power plant, of course, and we were, as young people, very critical to nuclear power. And then he showed his watch. This was a watch during the light. It looks green, and he told us, look, out of my watch, there will be more radioactivity than from all nuclear power plants in France. That was the last time I discussed with a French citizen about nuclear power plants. I'm joking. I don't think that it's really an opportunity or would be a way out if Germany would go back to nuclear, because it would need decades to build a new nuclear power plants. I very much support those who say don't shut down the last 3 nuclear power plants, because we have shortages of gas, and it's not very clever to use gas for the production of electricity. We did this during the summer because of the shortages of electricity in France. Germany, since many years, is a net exporter of electricity over the year, not every day, but over the year. And one of the issues was always that if the summer is hot and there is not enough water in the Rhone, then we had to deliver electricity to France. And of course, in other parts of the year, some of Germany, parts of Germany got electricity from nuclear power plants from France. So I would say that's not the right way to go back, because we would need decades to build a new one. And you have your own experience with a new kind of reactor, and Finland has. I would say it's the most expensive kind of electricity production. Nothing is more expensive than nuclear. But of course, we have to use those who are operating and who are not in a dangerous shape. What we would have to do in Germany, I don't know how your experience in France is with the way to renewable energies. Today, the most difficult or the biggest hurdle to produce more electricity out of renewables is that it becomes very difficult to convince citizens that we should have new windmills in the region where they live. So there are a lot of protests against them. And even if they would participate financially, they didn't want it. So we have to change our laws. For example, we want to have 80% renewable energies on the electricity market in 2030. Therefore, we have to triple the productions of new renewable energy sites every year, and that's impossible in the way we did it in the past. So we have to do something to get it much faster, and that's not so easy because of the legislation we have. Second, why is in Germany, nuclear not a way to go to solve the gas issue. As far as I know, many households in France are using electricity for the heating and cooling of their buildings. That's not the case in Germany. The majority of the houses are using gas for heating and cooling. So we have the shortages of gas is a problem for the industry, which needs the gas, as in France, for their production, and for heating, and especially for heating during the winter time. Therefore, we need a lot of natural gas. And the only way to do it is of course, to get alternative resources, which is not so easy, because then you have to invest in the exploration. You can discuss, for example, with Qatar. They would be willing to deliver more gas, but they need about 2 years. And then you are coming in a contradiction with your climate policy, because normally, at the end of the day, we also want to phase out every fossil energy resource, so also natural gas. So if you convince the Qataris to exploit a new gas field, then they would like to have a long-term contract for their investment. That's understandable. They will not invest some billion euros in the exploitation of a new gas field, and then the Germans say, okay, after 2 years, it's finished, or 5. So we are coming in contradiction to other parts of our policy. What could be the way out? I would say a more European organized energy market. And there we are better than some years before. We have interconnectors on the electricity system. It's much better than we had before. But we're not yet there where we could be. For example, I discussed with my French colleagues for 20 years why France is not willing to have a grid to Spain. Of course, I understand why, but is this national interest, is it now the most important thing, or is energy security in Europe the most important issue? And so we have to invest, for example, in LNG terminals in Germany. We don't have any. I tried as a prime minister of Lower Saxony to get one, and the European Union said, no, we'll allow you to subsidize this. Because everybody wants to use Russian pipeline gas, it has to be subsidized to get it done at the coast of Germany. And the European Union said, no, that's against European laws. Now we have financings by 100%. At that time, we only wanted to give 30%. That was forbidden. Now we are financing by 100% by the German state. So we change our energy system very fast. But the better way would do it on a European level, and there are some restrictions in Germany, but also in France, and I think we should overcome them.
Thank you. So it's also another way to illustrate the necessity to be more active or more proactive at European level, because there is a contradiction between, I would say, the European interest and the defense of national interest.
Franco-German relationship is going through a difficult situation. Do you think it's the worst situation since, I don't know, decades, 20 years? And do you think one of the reasons is because France is not so much a priority for Germany? It's something we hear sometimes. Do you agree with that opinion?
I'm not a psychological expert. I don't know what in the hearts and souls of our leaders is going on. I think that in Germany as well as in France, we should know that we have a responsibility for Europe. There was a Belgian foreign minister, he said, Europe is nothing more than small states and other small states which don't recognize that they are small. And so I think whatever is in the interests, the national interest of Germany or France, at the end, both will be losers if Europe will not win. So I can't imagine any single issue which could be so important to be more important than the European Union. So therefore, whatever German interests are, whatever French interests are, the European integration and the strengthening of Europe should be the main focus. I mean, we will not do any difference in the world without having the European Union. We will be marginalized. And this idea that a group of states come together and a small state like Malta with 400,000 citizens has the same rights like a state like France or Germany with some million citizens, you will not find very many political leaders in the world who think that this is a clever idea. So there are many forces who try to split us between East and West, North and South. I mean, not only Putin. Trump was a guy who very much supported the Brexit, for example. So I would say in the 21st century, bowling alone is not only a boring game, it's also a dangerous game. And therefore, I can't see any German single interest which should be so important not to work together with France. And of course, Germany and France, they also have bilateral and trilateral ties to other European member states. For us, for example, Poland is very important. The Polish and the East and the Baltics, they don't trust Germany, maybe also not France, when it comes to security issues. They have their own history. They are much more transatlantic orientated. By the way, that's something the French politicians should have in mind whenever you asked for a stronger, more European organized defense policy. Don't forget that there are some member states who are scared about a European army because they don't think that we would be willing to defend them. And that would split Europe again, and they would go even more in the direction of the United States. So therefore, Germany has always the responsibility to hold both parts of Europe together and to look for unity in the European Union. So there are others which are also important, but in the core of the European Union, there is an engine that's a German-French engine, and they should overcome the focus on national interests. Germany will not be as strong as it is today without France and without the European Union. And France is not in the position to be a player in the world without the European Union and Germany. So like the French President Macron said at his first period as president, he said, national sovereignty we only will get through European sovereignty. I think that's the right phrase. And I was sad to see that even during the last government in Germany, many French initiatives were not answered in the right and proper way. I think that was a big mistake on the last government, and I'm very sad to see that this government is making the same mistakes. I hope they will overcome it.
Okay, we understood you well, Mr. Gabriel. Thank you. Okay, we are coming at the end of our time. I would like to point out a few things which I take from our discussion. First, I think you were very right to remind the particular importance of the common responsibility of front of Germany for Europe, because it's part also of the bilateral treaties we have signed. It is a common commitment, and I think it's very right to point it out in this particular time, against the backdrop of the difficulties we have mentioned. And I think it's very important also as a signal also for the EU to go forward and to become stronger in also to be more effective against the different challenges you have mentioned in your statement. And I think it's one of the main message we can keep from our discussion, and also the fact that in this context you have sketched Europe is there is a kind of a solitude of Europe in this world because of the hardening of the competition with different actors, and also the fact that the US partner becomes more and more uncertain with the time because of its own challenges and its own internal difficulties. So it's a very important issue. Perhaps we could mention and to please Marc-Antoine, we could also mention the issue of climate change, because also the global issue we have to face all together. I would say the world is also the fact that we are facing a global warming, and that in this context we have also to keep channels of cooperation with big players, and you mentioned China rightly, and also we have to keep the US on board on these issues so that we are able to limit the global warming in the world, so that we have also a safer world for the next generations. I don't know if you want to add something, but I am very grateful to you for this discussion, which was very interesting and very vivid as usual.
No, thank you very much. For me was, first of all, I was happy to meet you again. It's,
we meet every 10 years.
Every 10 years, yeah, in different positions. Of course, I was happy to be invited during this time to Paris, because I think we should, whoever is able to say publicly that we are waiting for a common initiative of Germany and France should do this, and to encourage politicians to overcome their grievances or whatever they have in the common interest of Europe. I think this is the most important message we can give. Yeah. And to do it again, I'm doing this here because you invited me. I would say the same. I did say the same in Germany. You don't think I am only saying it because we are in Paris. No, that's not the case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel, and thank you very much for all the participants. I regret that we had problems with the interpretation, so it's a technical difficulty which arose during the discussion, and I'm sorry for this, but I hope that everybody could enjoy this discussion. And thank you again, Mr. Gabriel, and I think we will meet before 10 years again. And have a good day for everybody. So thank you very much, and bye-bye.